I think it is a must that the Steelers get A.J. Brown, only for the reason that you get A.J. Brown, you make him wear number 84. That way everybody with the Antonio Brown jerseys will not have to do anything.
That would work out for you guys, wouldn't
it?
It's
perfect. It's perfect. I'm thinking of the fans. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Donut Bag, part of the Pod Hub Network. It's been a while, like 4 days. I don't think I've ever gone that long without making a podcast episode. It's weird. I missed you. In this episode, I talk NFL Draft with Jesse Reeves from FF Statistics. We talk NFL Combine just concluded, so we talk about how important the Combine is, who stood out, what are the Steelers going to do, how are some of the players that the Steelers were targeting, how did they do, all kinds of draft-related stuff. The Donut Bag starts right now. Combine has concluded with me to talk about that and all other things draft-related is Jesse Reeves. He's at Jesse Reeves FF. Lead Dynasty analyst for FF Statistics and host of the Youth Movement podcast. Welcome back, sir.
What's going on, Joey? I'm happy to be back, man.
Oh, like we were talking before the call, too much going on. So the Combine just concluded. How important is the Combine? How much how important is the Combine compared to their game tape?
I would say it's more important to their draft stock more than anything. I know that NFL teams tend to put a lot of stake in what's going on with the players at the Combine, and it can definitely bump them down in terms of where they get drafted and such. But any good scout will tell you that the game tape is more important than anything. What you see on the tape week in and week out throughout their college career, that's the player you're mostly going to get. You would just like to see them at the Combine kind of back that up with physical metrics for the most part.
Yeah, and it seems like for us non-athletes, the Combine is kind of an interview process. Like if we were to go to a company and get interviewed, and in fact they a lot of prospects do get interviewed by teams, and they ask some pretty crazy questions. I think somebody got asked how many testicles he had or something like that.
You always hear some stories like that. Yeah,
a little scary. Yeah, I've heard. Some is like, is your mother a prostitute or something like that? Like really weird questions. But yeah, I think there's two names that really stand out, and one of them was DK Metcalf. He seems to be a physical freak, and he looks like a physical freak too. What did you think of his Combine?
He tested out pretty much as the world expected. If you know anything about DK Metcalf, you know that he is just an absolute specimen. Came in at about 6'3", 228 pounds. Everyone was really excited to see him run the 40. I personally thought he was going to run in maybe the high 4.3s, and sure enough, he came in at about 4.33, which is just, it's blazing for his size and his speed, and it was really fun to watch. But I had an inkling that he was going to test out very well. I believe he had a 40.5-inch vert, if I do remember correctly. I knew he was gonna jump out of the gym. That was never my issue with him. So his Combine backed up what I think a lot of people thought he would do physically. But again, that's not necessarily the issue when it comes to him. But he did have a really, really good Combine. I think he boosted his draft stock tremendously. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at him early in the draft.
Yeah, personally, he scares me. I think he's too much of I think he works out too much. That 1.6% body fat thing, I think that's like physically impossible. But I think you need. I think it's possible to be too fit and too, too ripped, and that's what it looks like to me.
That could definitely be an issue. We're talking about down the line mobility. We're talking about carrying around that extra weight. I'm sure if he cut down to maybe 215, sure he wouldn't be as big, but maybe that adds a little bit of speed. That adds a little bit of agility on his end. Right now, it looks good because he's able to carry it. I know a lot of the comparisons were coming out about Julio Jones and where Julio carries, how Julio's body stature is and the way that he looks. They're very similar. Can he have success at that weight and at that size at the next level? Definitely. But it lends itself to a more vertical threat when you're looking at what type of receiver he is. What can he do physically? He's very fast. But he's not going to be the type of guy, I believe, that is going to be shifty all the time and be able to he should be able to separate fine at the next level, which is something I think that a lot of people didn't think he would necessarily be able to do. On his game tape, he does, but what I'm getting at is his tape doesn't look like it hinders him too much. But at the next level, we don't know yet. Can he cut it down a little bit? Yeah, I think he can, but we'll see.
Do you think he moved up a lot, or just basically solidified where he was going to go in the draft?
I think for anybody that maybe double counts his athletic ability, and by what I mean by double counting is if you already expected him to come in and test well, and then he tests well, and then you over exaggerate even more, knowing he was going to test well, that's what we call double counting. So I think people that are double counting might have moved him up substantially, but I think that anybody that knew what he was capable of and knew that he was going to do this, I think he either sits at where you had him or maybe is bumped up a little bit. The public is largely divided when it comes to him. You either really like DK Metcalf or you really don't like him. So maybe this kind of evens the field a little bit and puts him kind of solidifies where you have him would be my take.
Yeah, I saw one latest mock draft him going 9 to the Bills. So that's very interesting. Speaking of the top of the draft, the big question is, what are the Cardinals going to do? Are they going to get Bosa, or are they going to get Murray? What do you think they should do?
I think you'd be smart to grab the best player in the draft, and that's obviously Nick Bosa coming at the defensive end position. I think him and Chandler Jones, I think they can just be an absolute force. The Bosas in the NFL have a long running bloodline there, and they're just NFL ready. They're the cream of the crop when it comes to the defensive end position. His brother Joey plays for my Chargers. Great addition there. If they're smart, they go with Nick Bosa or maybe I don't even think Josh Allen is worth the number one. Anybody who's speculating that Kyler Murray goes at the first overall, I think that's just a little outlandish, especially because they traded up to grab Josh Rosen last year at the 10th overall pick. A lot of people think that because Cliff Kingsbury worked with Kyler at Texas, Texas Tech, I believe, that before that, they have a strong inkling that they're going to go ahead and take him, and that's his guy. I think everyone's counting out Josh Rosen right now, and I don't think that they should, because he's a good quarterback, and he just needs time to develop. He had a really bad offensive coordinator in Mike McCoy to start the season last year. They ended up changing to Brian Leftwich. They had a horrible offensive line. It just, Christian Kirk got injured late in the season. It just didn't go as planned, and I think that I think you got to give him another chance. I think you do.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, we never know. Maybe Cliff might fall in love with Kyler Murray and move heaven and earth to get him. So we don't know what teams are going to do. But you're right. That's just a big waste. You basically said Rosen is our franchise quarterback. So yeah, at least give him a chance. I saw one trade that said the Cardinals would trade Rosen to the Steelers for Antonio Brown. So that would be
That's
interesting.
That is very absurd. And a report came out today that the Arizona is one of the leading people to land Antonio Brown right now. So whether or not Josh Rosen is inside of that or just, who knows? I have no idea right now. But I do think it's a little outlandish to say that Kyler goes first overall. And to correct myself too, people are going to get mad. It definitely was not Texas Tech. For some reason, I was thinking of Pat Mahomes, but it was Texas A&M. Kyler was there, so
Right.
Just wanted to correct myself there.
Well, let's talk a little bit about who didn't look very good in the draft, and that's that Ja'Kai Polite. Is that how you say that?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, he seemed like the poster child for what not to do. I don't know if it's on him. It's just, poor preparation, immaturity, whatever. But he just did not come off looking good.
No, and I think the hardest part about it is that he is a really, really, really good talent, and a lot of people have him worth a top 15 pick coming into this process, and it's hard to hear a kid like that with that much talent. He said that teams were bashing him, and then he kind of openly bashes those teams for bashing on him. It was kind of a conundrum, and the hard part about that is that you open yourself up to a negative light when you talk about the teams that interview you and the things that they say. Regardless, I respect him because he said how he felt, but regardless of how you felt, these teams place a value on you that they get to push that. They push the agenda of what value they put on you. And I don't know who told him it was okay to kind of say those things, or if he just got up there and just started saying his feelings or what was going on. But you have to be smarter about the way you attack things. If you don't like something that a team is telling you, that's fine. But it's hard in this process when you're in the middle of a very important interview for you to go and kind of talk down on the interviewers. I don't think that's ever worked in a job interview necessarily, and I don't think it's going to work for him here. But then, you saw reports of Matt Miller from Bleacher Report last night. I believe he said he got 5 text messages from scouts saying that Polite had pretty much plummeted his draft stock after having his press conference there and talking to the media at the combine. And it doesn't look good for him right now. You have to be smart. These kids have to be smart about what they say and how they say it.
So I saw a mock draft that had Polite going 31 to the Rams, and that was the only team that he said was nice, quote unquote, nice to him. So maybe this was his thing all along. It's like, I mean, I don't think anybody would intentionally sabotage their draft stock, but kind of a coincidence that the Rams might end up with the guy anyway.
If a team falls in love with him, I can see them pulling the trigger. I kind of look at it like Baker last year. When I say we, I mean he was kind of linked to the Chargers at 17, even though I think everybody knew he wasn't going to fall there. But he had come out publicly and said that he didn't even really bother to look at the Chargers playbook because he felt he wasn't even going to make it down the draft board that far. And he said that, and sure enough, people, he got picked at the first, the first very overall pick in last year's draft. But granted, Polite he's not a quarterback, and his position is very heavy in this draft at the edge. So people could look at a completely different direction after having him on the board. I expect people to take him off the board completely for that.
Yeah. Now, for the Steelers, they have 3 big needs. One of them is inside linebacker, the other is cornerback, and apparently now wide receiver because they're going to trade Antonio Brown. And 2 of the big linebackers that they're linked to is Devin White of LSU and Devin Bush of Michigan. How did they do in the combine? And it looks like both of their stocks went up.
Yes, I think yesterday they pretty much solidified themselves. I know they both ran in the 4.4s. Devin White, I believe, ran in a 4.42 or 4.43, and I know that Devin Bush ran a 4.44, I believe, on his first attempt. Both of them look great. to me, Devin White is probably the clear leader there out of both of the Devins.